Good afternoon and welcome. This is the BJA's webinar on the solicitation, which is out, the FY 2023 Upholding the Rule of Law, Preventing Wrongful Convictions solicitation webinar. My name is Marissa Bluestein. I'm an assistant director at the Quattrone Center. We are a TTA provider for grantees under this grant, which we'll talk about later. We have closed captioning available for this event. To turn it on or off, please use the icon found on the bottom at the ribbon at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please feel free to use the chat function feature found on the ribbon at the bottom of the window, or to raise your hand. But to submit a question, because there's so many people on this webinar today, please use the Q&A feature that is found on the ribbon at the bottom of the window. We will try to address questions as they come up, but we have plenty of time for Q&A reserved at the end of our presentation. We are recording this webinar. It will be posted on the BJA website and also forwarded to all registrants when it is available. I will be posting a PDF of the slides in the chat in a few minutes and reposting as well, so you will have that information today. So before we, so that's it for me for our introductory pieces. I want to introduce Catherine Browning, who is with us from BJA. She is the grant administrator for this grant, so is the one who works with the grantees and with us as well as the Quattrone Center. And she has a presentation on the application process itself. What are the grant deliverables? What are they looking for in grant applications? We'll talk a bit again about what kind of TTA is available for grantees under this grant, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So, Kathy?
All right, thank you, Marissa. First, I'm just gonna make sure my audio is working here. Yeah, good. All right, thank you, Marissa, and welcome everybody. As Marissa said, my name is Kathy Browning. I'm a senior policy advisor at BJA, working on the wrongful conviction portfolio. So here's a little bit of our agenda. I'm going to go over a little bit about BJA and the wrongful conviction program. Talk about the categories of funding that we have in this year's solicitation. Talk a little bit about the application materials, and then we, as Marissa said, we will have plenty of time for a Q&A. All right, just in case, for those of you all who may not be familiar with BJA or OJP, we just put in a little bit of an overview of this agency. So the Office of Justice Program is the agency that provides grant funding and training, research, and statistics to the criminal justice community. And BJA is a component within the Office of Justice Program. BJA's mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Our director is currently Carlton Moore, and he was appointed by President Biden in February of 2022, and he oversees the entire office. I am in the policy office. Again, I'm not going to read all of this out. You'll have it in the slides, but I'm in the policy office and work closely with the programs office, who they're the ones who manage the grants that we make. And then we also have our operations office and the public safety office and benefits office. So there are 5 major strategic focus areas in BJA to improve public safety through measures which build trust within the community, the reduction in recidivism and prevention of unnecessary confinement is important, integration of evidence-based research-driven strategies into the day-to-day operations of BJA, increasing program effectiveness with a renewed emphasis on data analysis, information sharing, and performance management, and ensuring organizational excellence through outstanding administration and oversight of all of our investments. I'll just a little bit more overview. I won't get into all of these. We'll just move on because I know what you're mostly interested in is the solicitation. So just as the overview, and I'll refer to it as the wrongful conviction program, but The goal and the objectives of this program is to provide support for reviews of cases of post-conviction and appeal claims of innocence with a focus on those at greatest risk of error, to establish and enhance partnerships, which that's something we're really going to talk about here. This is an important piece of this program to apply strategic review of individual claims and where relevant to use this information to inform efforts to prevent wrongful conviction, to enhance the collection and analysis of data is an important part of this, and obviously wherever possible, identifying and apprehending the actual perpetrators of a crime. And finally, to evaluate whether or not there are any systemic issues that exist that may compromise the rule of law and recommend practices for mitigating them and preventing wrongful conviction. So in the FY23 solicitation, there are two categories. The first one is for category 1 is for site-based funds for wrongful conviction review led entity-led strategies. And the second one, category 2, is for prosecutor conviction integrity unit led partnerships to implement these strategies. And as you'll see, for those of you who are familiar with our previous solicitations, category 2 is a new category here. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, but that is a change from last year. And you'll also note that we have increased the funding level to $600,000 as a maximum. We had increased them last year some, but we've done it a little bit more by popular request. We get a lot of requests for that. So again, this is just a maximum amount. If you don't need that full amount, you want to apply for what makes sense for your project, but we have raised that maximum. And so because we have that the category 2 here, looking with the conviction integrity unit entities, the eligibility, the following entities are eligible to apply. So we've got city, county, state, or tribal governments, nonprofit organizations, including tribal nonprofit organizations, institutions of higher education, and state or local public defenders' offices that have in-house post-conviction representation programs. Again, all of these are detailed in the solicitation. I should note that, I've tried to simplify some of the material in for this presentation, but always refer to the solicitation for, more specific. All right, so category 1, as I said, is wrongful conviction review entity-led strategy. So this is similar to what you've seen in, I think, all of our previous solicitations. So this is one that's led by a wrongful conviction review entity and focuses on review of post-conviction claims of innocence. This could be a jurisdiction with a new program or an established one. So we've had a number over the years that have used this grant funding to start a new program. The applicant's strategic plan should review, investigate, and adjudicate individual cases of post-conviction claims of innocence and appeals. We're looking for to support high quality and efficient post-conviction representation for these defendants. And the strategy should also include an assessment of the risk for wrongful conviction among the reviewed cases. A little bit more on this. So if the application includes a partnership with a CIU, you're going to need to include a description of the policies and procedures that are designed to avoid conflicts of interest and protect the defendant's right, including plans for obtaining a waiver of attorney-client privileges and informed consent. And I'm not looking at the chat and Q&A, but I'm guessing we may be getting some questions about sort of this partnership and everything, which I will get to, but I'm just gonna go through some of the basics here. So all of the applicant organizations should show your capacity and commitment of the key partners to conduct this work, including experience and competence with legal representation of post-conviction claims of innocence and appeals. Okay, so for category 2, this is for the prosecutor or conviction integrity unit-led strategies. So this is one that's led by a CIU entity and focuses on review of post-conviction claims of innocence. Again, like with the other one, this could be for starting up a new CIU or for building up an established CIU. Applications should include the proposed methods of assessing the risk of and preventing wrongful conviction through the collection and analysis of data on post-conviction claims of innocence and outcomes of appeals where error is found. And the wrongful conviction assessment should look at any vulnerabilities in the court system and create a process to systematically identify and review cases that meet the criteria for risk of wrongful conviction.
And Kathy, there's just a quick clarification in the Q&A whether prosecutors' offices are eligible to apply. It's our understanding that they are.
Yes, yes. So the applicant may support a partnership with a wrongful conviction entity that's applying under category 1. And when there is a partnership, you should have either an MOU or letters of support between the CIU or prosecutor's office and the wrongful conviction entities that are part of this. CIU prosecutor applicants must include a description of policies and procedures designed to avoid conflicts of interest or perceptions of partiality, particularly with regard to the involvement in reviews of prosecutors who originally tried the case or participated in the prosecution. So applicants must include descriptions of policies and procedures for handling evidence of prosecutorial misconduct with a strong preference for referral to an independent entity once discovered. Now, I do want to elaborate a little bit more on the partnership piece here. So, you know, one of the questions that we get most often every year when we put the solicitation out is, what about CIUs? And we have seen over the years where wrongful conviction entities are working with CIUs and vice versa. And so our hope here is to facilitate those kinds of partnerships and to allow for even more funding than was allowed in the past when you had these partnerships. So, you know, if you are in a jurisdiction where there's a CIU that wants to partner with one or more wrongful conviction entities, then, you know, the CIU can come in under category 2 and the wrongful conviction entity under category 1. It's not required that you do it that way. And one of the reasons we allowed it we wanted to maintain enough flexibility with the knowledge that, you know, there are a number of jurisdictions right now that have current grants, current awards, and are working through those. And so if a CIU wanted to partner with them and they didn't need additional funds for some reason, then that's okay too. But what we're looking for here is those partnerships where possible. And so, you know, it's not required that you have two different, I guess you could call them companion applications, but that is a way that you can maximize the resources that might be needed for your jurisdiction. And if there are other questions about that partnership, feel free to put those in the Q&A and we can address it in even more detail at the end. So in terms of deliverables, not a whole lot here. For both of the categories, you'll be expected to identify and report the number of post-conviction and appeals claims of innocence cases reviewed, the stage of review conducted for each case, and any outcome. Document a systematic review of areas of risk for wrongful conviction and recommend any strategies to mitigate these risks. More specifically, in addition to those two, for category 1, we're looking for the review, investigation, and adjudication of individual cases of claims of innocence and by supporting high quality and effective post-conviction representation and related activities. And for category 2, development of the policies and procedures and identification of training needs for preventing wrongful conviction. Just a note about performance measure requirements. You're not required to submit any performance data with your application, but you should pay attention to this section in the solicitation because it is something that if you are awarded, you're going to be required to submit performance data as part of the reporting requirements under these awards. And there's a link there so that you can get a sense of what those would be.
Yeah, so Kathy, there actually is a question in the Q&A about that exactly. Do you have information about specific types of data that BJA is looking for with the applications that will be tracked, or will that kind of vary on an applicant by applicant basis?
So I should, but I don't. I just can't remember them offhand, but there should be a link in the solicitation that will take you to some more information about what those performance metrics are.
Okay. And we did put the link in the chat to the solicitation, so it's there. We can repost it again for folks who may have joined us a little bit late. And there's another question, Kathy, I think can answer here, which is whether it is possible to apply under category 2, in other words, for a CIU, where the main grantee is a CIU, the wrongful conviction entity is the sub-grantee, or that's that partnership you were talking about, where the wrongful conviction entity would have to file their own application.
Yes, you can still submit an application just as you described with the wrongful conviction entity as a sub-grantee. Again, we were trying to, provide, but under that scenario, the cap would be the $600,000. So for that award, yeah. Any other questions, or shall I?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. So just a few tips for applying. Just make sure that the application is submitted by an eligible type of applicant. Please read through the solicitation very closely to make sure that you are responsive to the scope of the solicitation. We've got a lot of details within there about what the peer review will look at and all the different sections. So please read through that. Just a note on page 15, there's a list of items that are designated as critical elements. So please take close note of that. Again, as I said earlier, the applicant does not have to apply for the maximum amount of funds, and you apply for what makes sense for your award. And if not everybody applies for the full amount, then we can fund more. We've got a total amount that we can fund in terms of dollars that we can fund, not a total number of awards per se. So just want to make sure that is clear, because it hurts your application if it just looks like you're trying to apply for that maximum amount if you don't need it. And just, I can't emphasize this enough. Recheck and check again all of your budget, grant requirements, references. Make sure that you have everything. There's a checklist in the back, and to help you. We've tried to streamline it, but I think we have a ways to go before it's a little more user-friendly. So important to know, there are actually 2 deadlines for this, and you have to make both of them. So the first one is the grants.gov deadline, which is May 17th. And also note, in the past, we've always had our deadlines be like midnight. We're not doing that anymore. So please pay attention to that. This is pretty much 9 o'clock Eastern. So we get a lot of submissions around 11 o'clock at night. So please make sure that you take note of that time change. And then, so the grant.gov deadline is just for your SF424 and some of the basic forms for grants.gov. The full application is due on May the 24th. Again, it's an 8:59 p.m. Eastern time. So just taking note of those. I encourage you not to wait until 8 o'clock on those days to be applying. It's not unheard of to have technical difficulties, and while sometimes, you can file appeals if extenuating circumstances come up, like if you're applying and you have a technical difficulty, I always recommend, I think I'm gonna have something in a couple of slides. I'll have the contact information for the response center. If you have any trouble during any of this process, please notify the response center, or if it's like with Just Grants, please notify them, because when we have a record of what's going on, then we're more likely to be able to help you remedy that.
And I just want to point out that in the PDF of the slides that folks have, these links are live. So you can just click on them and go right to the site that Kathy is intending.
Great, thank you. And so here BJA has really made an effort over the last few years to develop some more guidance on what's needed in a application, and what is the funding process like, and how to put together a proposal. So we've got some links here to some of our webinars and videos that we have, and guidance and resources. So I encourage you, especially if you're first time, or if you haven't applied in a little while because the process has changed, then please make use of these resources. As I referenced earlier, there are a number of help lines, I guess to call them, for you, and please make use of them as you have questions, or then please contact these. We've got them sort of broken out, so if you've got a grants.gov related question, there's a hotline, there's an email. So those are posted here. You have trouble with Just Grants, there's a customer support hotline, and contact and email there. If you have any questions like you think of after this webinar, or more about the solicitation, then you can submit these to the OJP Response Center. Those questions are sent to me as a general rule to respond to. So please put those questions in. They check in with me. If it's not one that's already been answered, in which case they do answer that. We can address those questions there. So we've got the email there, we've got the number, and the ways to get in touch with them. There's also a contact for receiving email notifications of new funding opportunities and resources. There are a lot of different ways. I'm a dinosaur, so I don't actually use any of these, but there are a lot of different ways to keep in touch with BJA and get information about our awards and what we're doing, and those are all here. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Marissa to talk to you a little bit about the training and technical assistance.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. And there's some questions in the Q&A. We're going to get to Q&A just a moment, so we'll be able to answer those questions live. So the Quattrone Center for the Fair Administration of Justice at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School is the training and technical assistance provider for all grantees under the Upholding Rule of Law and Preventing Wrongful Convictions program so far. So what we do as TTA providers is we consult directly with all grantees to kind of see what their needs are under the grant in order to make their goals happen. We can provide access to subject matter experts. Our staff and our folks at the center are well versed in issues that are related to wrongful conviction litigation and investigation, so we can directly consult or connect you with others. We also provide peer group support through regional groups with grantees, with statewide groups with CIUs, and all kinds of different combinations. Every month, the Quattrone Center hosts a monthly training program for grantees, as well as, frankly, anyone who's doing post-conviction litigation and in investigation. Those topics cover a wide range from internal issues such as dealing with intake, handling issues with racial discrimination in terms of intake and case review, false confessions, eyewitness identification issues, all kinds. We've covered it. I will put a link to a website in the chat where all of those videos are available and posted. They're also on our YouTube page. So we do everything we can to meet with grantees. You're not required to work with the TTA, but we are here. And we are here to provide support for grantees as you're going through the process, in particular, where there are partnerships between a CIU and an innocence organization or wrongful conviction entity. We can provide a lot of support to kind of help work through those issues that arise when trying to work in partnership. So we would encourage anybody to reach out to us. I'll put my email in the chat as well before we end. Please feel free to reach out to any questions about what kind of assistance might be available for grantees and how we can help you meet your goals. That's literally what we're here for.
All right, thank you, Marissa. So I think at this time, we are ready to move into the Q&A. So I am going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay. So the first two questions are really kind of the same. It's for CIUs. The way that the solicitation is worded, it says CIU in partnership with a wrongful conviction entity, but they just want to make sure that CIUs can apply for their own projects even without a wrongful conviction entity partner.
Yes. So yes, you can apply on your own. We're encouraging partnerships, and again, but we're trying to leave a lot of flexibility there. So yes, you can apply without there being a companion partnership application.
And there's a second related question with that, Kathy, which is that if there is a partnership with a wrongful conviction entity, does that entity go in as a sub-grantee under the CIU's grant, or do they have to apply on their own, or is either one acceptable?
Either one is acceptable, is the short answer.
Okay.
Yeah, again, because they may not need all of the funds from a separate, award, and we understand it's a lot of work and that it might not work for your arrangement. So yes, you can either do it as a sub award and vice versa, as we've had in the past with the wrongful conviction entities being the applicant, and they have a partnership with the CIU as part of that.
Right. And a different question on this, but under other grant programs like the post-conviction DNA or Coverdell, it requires the Attorney General's office to sign off. Is that required here for the CIUs or wrongful conviction entities under this grant? Does the Attorney General's office have to sign off on the grant?
No, not for this one.
So no involvement at all necessary.
No.
And there's a question in there about the reverse of the partnerships. Can the wrongful conviction entity be the main grantee and the CIU be the sub-grantee?
Yeah.
And that's how it's been done on many of the grants that are already out there. So we have,
Correct.
that's right, that's been doing.
Again, the goal here and the reason for having the two different categories here and allowing for that is largely to allow for greater funding levels if that's what's needed there, and to allow some flexibility. So,
okay. So there's a question I think about clinics at law schools is whether if there's a law school considering founding a clinic, but they haven't done so yet, can this funding be used to support a clinic, particularly one with that looks like it's a hybrid potentially with maybe an engineering program or software program aimed, I'm assuming, at the looking for preventing wrongful convictions and efficient ways of going through cases. So would it be a partnership between a budding clinic, let's say, and another entity at the university? Would that be something which would be appropriate under this grant?
yeah, I think yes. As a general rule, yes. You would need to, just go through clearly and make sure that you're adhering to the scope of the solicitation, whether it be, reviewing cases, or, finding new, more efficient means. But yes, that could be, I would say.
Okay. And I don't see any other questions in the Q&A section. So I would just remind people, if you do have outstanding questions that have not yet been answered, please put them in the Q&A so we can get them answered for you. I am again putting in the PDF of the slides from this presentation. So obviously you weren't able to link on the slides during the Zoom, but the links are live on the PDF, and you should be able to link all the resources that Kathy was talking about in the PDF that's there. I'm also going to put in my email address here. If anybody has questions about the TTA that we do or the work that we do with wrongful conviction entities and CIUs around the country, if you want to be added to that monthly meeting and that monthly training program, please let me know. We'll be happy to add anybody who wants to be on there. And I'm also putting up a website where just making sure I'm spelling that right, where all of the, nope, I did not. Where all of the previous webinars that we've done, all the recordings are there. And I should say that, of course, all of those are funded by BJA, and they're available through that because of the funding that we've received from the program to be able to help. So again, looking at the Q&A, not seeing any additional questions and no hands raised. We'll give folks a minute or two else to put any questions and answers. We will be making this recording available through the BJA website. It will have to be processed through BJA, so it'll take a little bit of a time, but it'll be posted probably near the solicitation for the program itself, which I posted in the chat and I can repost again. And we will also send it out to all the registrants that we received through the registration link as well. And I'm just putting in a copy of the solicitation once more into the chat here, or at least a link to the solicitation there for anybody who still needs it. Okay. And not seeing any further, oh, there's one. There's a question in the chat about 501c3 nonprofits applying that do work in post-conviction. So they, as I understand it, Kathy, nonprofits are included in the wrongful conviction entity definition, as long as they are doing work in this space. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And you can see I just sort of summarized the eligible applicants in the slide here, but we've got it spelled out in a lot more detail in the solicitation, but yes.
Okay, great. And the question is whether they're considered a grantee or sub-grantee. Could you just explain a bit, Kathy, about the difference between a grantee and a sub-grantee?
So the grantee is the applicant. So, and that the applicant is the one who has is also the fiscal agent. So the one who will be, handling all of the grant activities and sort of overseeing the award. there are a lot of different ways that you can, have different partnerships in here. But for the sub-grantee, is when, maybe there's a partnering agency that needs some funds to do their part of the project, then they can be listed as a sub-grantee on the award.
And there's a question of when will the awards be announced? And I know there's not a date. We wouldn't hold you to that, Kathy, but a time of year generally when they're announced, if you can answer that.
Yeah, well, our goal is always to make the announcements by September 30th. And I think we might be closer to doing that this year. So it may be a little bit earlier, but our goal is to make it by the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th.
Okay. And there's some folks I can see who've raised hands. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A because it's a little bit hard for us to find hands. So the question's a little bit, the question is, what if the partnership is dependent on the decision of who gets the award? I think that has to do with a grantee sub-grantee issue. Like, does it really matter from BJ's perspective whether the wrongful conviction entity is the applicant or whether the CIU is the applicant? I'm going to interpret it that way.
No, I don't think so.
And there's a question of whether this grant, whether a partner in the grant could be a licensed laboratory, whether a medical examiner or DNA or others. Is that an appropriate partnership under the grant, or at least an appropriate program to seek funding for a partnership with a lab or a medical examiner's office?
So you have to be careful along those lines because we may have it depends on exactly, what the focus is of the project. Now, it's possible that as part of to support the review of cases and an investigation of cases, that partnership can work. But although it's already closed, we have the post-conviction solicitation, and so projects that would fit more fully under that really don't fit here. This is a different situation. So it would depend on the details, but yes, there are some where we've got support for DNA analysis on these cases. And
the solicitation you're talking about is the post-conviction DNA grant, which comes out separately from this grant and has a separate stream of funding, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Although they got out of the gate a little sooner than I did this year, so that one has already closed, but it is, as a general rule, posted every year or so.
Right. And another question is, over what period of time is the $600,000 distributed?
For so this one's a 24 months, so over the 2 years.
Right. And it's possible to apply for a no-cost extension for that if the goals have not been met during that time period, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Right. There's a question of whether, and I don't know whether you can answer this, but about examples of prior recipients. What have prior recipients used the grant money to fund?
So I think we actually have this online on our website. We have that. I can't point directly to that, but maybe we can, in a follow-up, we can point you to the places on our website that will talk about, all of those projects. We've been in a number of different jurisdictions. There have been, wrongful conviction entities that have been started up, and those that have, just been trying to handle the process. A lot of cases, backlog. So it's a lot. So we'll point you to some places.
And I just put into the chat a link to a part of the BJA website, which has a list of successful applicants from the past. You can search that. You can filter that through for the wrongful conviction or uploading the rule of law program if you want to. So there's a question here: if a CIU and a wrongful conviction entity are in partnership but separately for category 1 and category 2, if one is decided not to be funded, does that automatically assure the other will not be funded? Now, are they kind of linked together?
No, they're not linked. And I mean, we will look at them when there are some that are, if you do have two that come in and there's reference, you should reference the other one, and we will look at that. But it's not something that either gives you a priority thing for having that companion, or one that if one is stronger and the other one is not, then we would just fund one.
But you would recommend that if people are applying that way with one category one category two, they reference each other so that that's clear to the reviewers.
You should, yeah.
There's a question in the chat of, may a CIU from one jurisdiction as a awardee partner with another CIU in a different jurisdiction as a sub-grantee? I think without a wrongful conviction entity being involved was the question. So can CIUs apply either together as co-applicants or one with a sub-grantee for the other?
I don't see why not. I'd have to know more about sort of what that arrangement. I mean, as long as what you're planning is consistent with what the solicitation's asking for, sure.
Right, and there are issues, of course, with jurisdictional funding and who the oversight board is and all that, and so they would have to work that out with their independent jurisdictions. But from your view, in terms of the solicitation, no bar to that.
Again, are trying to be flexible, because we know that, I mean, a lot of you all are doing very innovative things, and, partnerships are good, but partnerships look different in different places. So, again, if you have, as you're working through that, and you have more specific questions, please feel free to submit that to the response center.
And again, those links are in the slides that you put up, and it's in the PDF that is already in the chat.
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, I'll put it up once again, just to make sure everybody has it. So there's no issue there.
And it's also in the solicitation.
Right. How many awards are granted for this? Is there a number of awards that are limitations, or is it amount of money to be spent?
It's the amount of money that is to be spent. I think we have ballparked in here. If everybody, we don't expect that everybody's going to come in for the full 600. I mean, even when we had a lower cap, not everybody came in for that. So when we get, if we get a lot, let's say for 400,000, then we will fund more awards. So if most of them kind of came close, I think we ballparked about 15. But again, it's flexible. It's that funding cap. And the key thing for you, for all applicants, is just apply for what makes sense. I mean, if you're a smaller jurisdiction or you don't need as much, then apply for what makes sense, because when the peer reviewers are looking at it, they're going to look at your budget and say, oh, this is a reasonable budget for what they want to do.
So under the solicitation, I think it lists up to 8 awards for each of the categories for up to 600,000. If those came in under 600,000, there might be 10 awards at a lower number. Okay, so it's the amount of money, not the number.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Looking for other questions in the Q&A. Just give me one more second. Okay, Kathy, any parting words you wanted to leave folks with? Oh, whoop. There's one here. Is there a possibility to apply, be selected, but funds left based on everyone else to accept a lesser amount? I think, in other words, can they kind of up the grant if you're coming in under the funding cap? So if I put in a request for 300,000, can I up it later if the money hasn't been spent? I think is the question.
Not likely. I mean, I don't know, but in general, we'll look to spend all of these funds on, the current application.
Okay, right. So apply for what you think you're going to need.
Exactly.
Okay. Not seeing other questions. So now, Kathy, is there any parting words you wanted to leave folks with?
Not really. Just thank you all for your interest here. I can't encourage you enough to ask questions. Take advantage of the resources that we provided there, the response center for any questions. And if you run into any technical difficulties, I do think that our system has improved a little bit, but always notify the appropriate technical assistance provider of any program or any technical issues you have or questions, so that there's a documentation of that issue and so that they can respond to you in a timely manner.
Great.
So thank you all. And thank you,
Kathy.
Marissa.
Thank you. And on behalf of Kathy, the BJA, and the Quattrone Center, thank you all for joining us today. As I said, this has been recorded. It will be posted on the BJA website when it becomes available, and we will also send it out to all registrants from the Quattrone Center. In the meantime, if you have questions, please, like Kathy said, make use of the resources that are made available to you. They're in the PDF that's been in the chat. If you have any trouble downloading that or any trouble accessing any of the information we've said, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is in the chat as well. Thank you all for joining us.